morning. The Oversight Committee on State and Local Public Assistance Programs will come to order. If you'd like to testify on an item today or on the agenda, please fill out a testimony card and turn it into the sergeant. Will the clerk please call roll for today's attendance?
Chair Wolford.
Here.
Representatives Bruck.
Present.
Cara.
Here.
Cerniglu. Here. Menser.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 5 members present. You do have a quorum.
Thank you. Representative Menser moves to adopt the minutes of June 12th, 2025 meeting. There being no objections, the motion prevails by unanimous consent. Before we get started, I wanted to just read a quick statement that I wrote. Just very simply, as a husband, a veteran, a taxpayer, father to children and caring for people in the state of Michigan as a whole, I'm committed to stop the fraud in Michigan, and specifically the fraud that's happening with these Michigan bridge cards. Hardworking men and women entrust all of us in this room with their taxes, with the money that they're paying in taxes, and expecting those funds to help people in need, not going to those that are frauding the system or those that are stealing from it. So we must close these gaps, hold these fraudsters accountable, and ensure the Department of Health and Human Services continues to help stop the waste, fraud, and abuse, so that for every dollar that is going into these programs actually goes to supporting the people who are actually in need and then protecting those that use it. Thank you. First today, we'll be hearing a presentation from the Office of the Inspector General. After that, we'll be hearing a presentation from Conduent. And finally, we'll be hearing testimony from Representative Ron Robinson. With that said, I'd like to welcome Doug Woodard from the Office of Inspector General. And please begin when you're ready. Good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and good morning to everybody here. And on behalf of Stacy Sampson, our Inspector General, I've got with me here today Andrew Kostowski, the Director of our Special Investigations Division, and Jennifer Allen, who's the Manager of our Benefit Trafficking Investigations Section.
Chair, I apologize. May I make a point of order before the presentation?
Yes.
Just to be clear, the notice mentions HB 4515 that is not currently before this committee, but rather currently in the Government Operations Committee. I just wanted to ensure that our chair asks our guests not to discuss the merits of this bill or any other bill which is improper, but to keep their comments to the general issue of bridge cards and their security, which it looks like this presentation is doing. But just wanted to clarify that with the chair and with our guests.
Thank you. Appreciate your time on that, but 4515 is not being laid out before this committee. We're not considering this bill at all today in this committee. The business before this committee is a presentation and a testimony on the topic that coincides with the policy bill in other committee, which is in another committee. This Oversight Committee is engaging in its duty to gather information and possibly provide policy recommendations to other committees, which within the scope of this committee is. So no motions regarding 4515 will be considered today. Thank you. Go ahead.
Chair, I appeal the decision.
We'll go at ease. The committee will come back to order. Representative Bruck,
I move to table the motion.
without objection, so ordered. The clerk will call the roll. Oh, no, we're good. Okay. All right, so we're good to go. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so as I said earlier, I've got Andrew Kostowski and Jennifer Allen with me. They're working our teams. Andrew's the director of our Special Investigations Division, and Jennifer is the manager of our Benefit Trafficking Investigations Section, which does a lot of the work and is involved in a lot of the work today that we're going to be talking about. Presently, Michigan, along with 48 other states, operate their food programs with magnetic stripe technology. This year, California was the first state to utilize chip technology, and others are moving toward in that direction. Over the past 3 years, Michigan has averaged nearly 1.4 million FAP recipients and 250 million in FAP benefits paid out monthly. Each of these recipients represents a potential conduit for bad actors to steal FAP benefits through skimmed EBT cards. Chipping the bridge card will help reduce stolen benefits. Within the past few years, criminals have utilized skimmers or shimmers at point-of-sale devices to copy and produce counterfeit cards. This image shows how small the components are to produce a shimmer, which is on the top, and a skimmer, which is on the bottom left, and a 100-pack of blank EBT cards costing $41.87 from a well-known office supply company. Once a recipient's EBT card is compromised, criminals can then access EBT benefits for as low as 41 cents per card. This is a photo of the common components used to build a card skimmer. These items are easily purchased on the internet through legitimate businesses, typically for less than $10 each. The items pictured here are currently for sale through Amazon. Bridge cards updated with chip technology would require bad actors to intercept the current digital code and then enter the PIN while the card is still processing in the point-of-sale terminal to complete a subsequent transaction. Tap to pay on enabled chip cards is even better at preventing fraud by tokenizing the transaction. Instead of transmitting card details, Tap to Pay sends a one-time use code. This method reduces the risk of encountering a skimmer or shimmer, as there is no physical contact with the point-of-sale terminal. Now we're going to talk a little bit about what we're doing to combat stolen benefits. This is a photo of a skimmer attached to a card reader of a store. This past year, MDHHS OIG developed algorithms and analytical tools for early detection of compromised accounts and skimmer locations. Our EBT skimmer analysis uses geolocation data and recipient shopping patterns to identify potential placement of skimmers at retail stores. OIG partners with USDA OIG when we identify skimmers. These analytic activities have resulted in the detection and confiscation of 44 skimmers at Michigan retailers and have safeguarded over 76,000 individual bridge card accounts and more than $16.6 million in food stamp funds. Our OIG continues to locate point-of-sale terminals utilized to steal FAP benefits. OIG has identified over 300 terminals at unauthorized locations using the terminal IDs of an FNS authorized location to process payments. OIG requests a PIN reset, which requires the recipient to reset their PIN before using their bridge card, as their old PIN was potentially compromised at the store when utilizing a cloned point-of-sale device. A search warrant was executed by local law enforcement and Jennifer's team at one of these unauthorized locations, and evidence of fraudulent FAP transactions and other financial crimes were located and seized, including several electronic card readers as seen here. These card readers are believed to have processed hundreds of thousands of dollars in fraudulent EBT transactions. OIG recovered these bridge cards and several others from an unauthorized retail location that was completing illegitimate benefit transactions. Earlier this year, we sent a recommendation letter to the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Through our investigations, we found that third-party processors do not have a method or ability to verify the FNS number that is used by merchant applicants for terminal setups, which allows the criminal groups to deceive these processors by providing false information about their businesses. The veil creates a lucrative method for these bad actors to easily conduct and conceal EBT fraud at the terminal level. These are OIG's efforts and outcomes from last year. Our efforts to reduce fraud, waste, and abuse ensure that taxpayers' money is spent on its intended purpose and benefit programs are operating as expected.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony today. Thank you for the hard work that you and your team are doing and the amounts of money that you're helping taxpayers, those that are working sometimes two jobs to provide benefits to those that are in need, but then seeing the fraud and the thievery. So thank you for doing a good job on that. I appreciate it. I do have a few questions for you today. I know the last time that you were here, we were talking on a few different topics, but we're actually talking about the actual card itself today. So you mentioned converting bridge cards to chip cards and possible bid that you were already looking into at our last hearing, which is why we asked you back again today. And additionally, having a company come in to testify today regarding that as well. So would this conversion of bridge cards fall into the category of fraud detection or prevention or both?
It would be fraud prevention for sure. Depending on the vendor and what we would set up in the contract, there could be some detection as well.
Okay. And do you have, and if you don't, it's okay, but do you have an estimate or have you done any calculations to determine how much fraud this conversion could possibly prevent when we're seeing the amounts of fraud that you've found and the amounts, but now having additional pieces?
We don't have an accurate number that we can give you or even guesstimate on. Jennifer's unit works on this, on these cases all the time and works with other law enforcement authorities. It is a problem, but I can't tell you what the actual number is.
Sure. And on the previous slide, was it, what was the amount in millions that you were able to save or find?
We had a $305 million impact through fraud detection, avoidance, and disqualifications last year.
Okay.
That number's been trending up over the years in all the programs, not just food assistance.
Great. So it would probably be safe to say if that we've found hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And that we might be able to find even more with more safeguards and things to stop this, correct?
I would say, yeah, we could prevent more, would be probably even better. The pay and chase model of investigative agencies like ours it's really actually better served to prevent fraud from happening than chasing the money, especially since it goes all over the map.
Thank you. What type of fraudsters have you identified in your work that would steal or use someone else's bridge card?
we're seeing is organized crime. You know, and it's not the traditional organized crime that you see in the movies. It's groups of individuals that have a propensity for knowledge on computer systems and how to build EBT card skimmers that work together and create opportunities for them to steal benefits from the department.
Okay. And let's talk just a little bit about that impact. How often do these fraudsters use someone else's bridge card? And then also, have you seen the same name from the same people with cards with fraud? I know that's a two-parter, so I'll repeat it.
As you know, we've testified in the past, we only know about the fraud that we detect. With that in mind, you know, Jennifer and her team, they interact at the recipient level with the people and the names, and would probably be better able to answer that question for you.
Yeah, so we do have some cases that are ongoing that we've identified that it is the same individuals or same group of individuals that are involved in these.
Mm-hmm. And then what is done with that information, and what have you seen as follow-up and follow-through?
We investigate the case and we prepare it for prosecution.
Okay, wonderful, thank you, appreciate that. Is it easy to identify those who commit to this organized crime and putting a stop to it, or is it something that you feel is just so big that it's hard to wrap your arms around?
We have a robust internal analytics unit within our department, within our agency, that does an awesome job at detecting any new trends. And I think I previously said that the trends don't stay the same. It's a moving target, and that's what makes it more difficult. We're here talking about chip card technology today, while a mobile wallet is now becoming the trending new way to pay. So part of the frustration is government is generally 10 to 15 years behind the banking sector, so we follow along on a slower trail. And I'm not blaming the state government, it's the federal government in this case that waited till late last year in between November and December to let the states know that they were authorized to do chip cards. And they are testing mobile wallet technology. Mm-hmm. So to answer your question, there is some frustration in getting your hand wrapped around what's coming next, because there's always a new trend and there's always, whenever somebody says to me, well, that'll prevent fraud. Yeah, it will, and it slows it down for sure, but there's always new technology being developed by fraudsters and people, and that's why we have companies like antivirus software that constantly have to stay ahead of the game.
Awesome, thank you. I will note that I had the privilege of going to the White House a few weeks ago and meeting with the President's cabinet, and I was able to have a one-on-one conversation with the Secretary Kennedy, and he had shared when we were sharing some of the information from here in Michigan, we have his number one contact, and said that he wants to work with the state of Michigan and us to stop this waste, fraud, and abuse. So I'm excited about the continuing of that relationship, because that'll help give you some help as well in your team. Given your, well, I guess before I get to that, how might converting bridge cards to chip cards help in your fight against this organized crime and from individuals?
I would say that we've got newer actors coming in the game that can purchase, like we showed in the presentation, things for pretty cheap to rig up a skimmer. For them to get beyond chip technology is going to take a while. Some of them will get to it quicker than others, but the reality is as they advance, we have to block those measures. And as stated previously in our presentation, the swipe card technology is so easy to copy. There's no, you and I can go out and buy a card reader tomorrow and read any amount of information that comes on a swiped card. So just that in itself is going to stop some of this.
That's great. And, I'm glad to hear you speak in those terms of speaking on the importance of that anything helps, right?
Yep.
I think about, I was in a Walmart a month ago, and might have been 2 months ago, and there was a young girl who was there with her 2 babies, and she told me that she works 2 jobs, and she was talking about the cost of eggs and how she couldn't afford them, and that she was going to have to go buy, something other than that, to not being able to give her kids a proper, healthy breakfast. The reason I say that is she's working 2 jobs, being taxed, overtaxed, and it's important for those people that are working like that to know that the money that they're paying into a system and taxes are doing anything and everything they can. And while there's no silver bullet, so to speak, in this, putting some of these safeguards into place, chips and pictures on cards and the things, not one of them is an overall fix, but they will continue to stop some of this fraud. So thank you for that. Just one second. Representative Carl?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your testimony. You mentioned earlier that there was over $305 million in fraud, cost avoidance, and disqualifications that you were able to detect. And there's fraud that you were not able to detect. Do you have any ballpark estimate on how much total fraud you believe that there was?
No, we don't.
But certainly more than that, and you did the best you could.
We did the best we can. We find whatever fraud we can. And,
Right.
And we aggressively go after it.
Right, and if we can prevent it in the first place, the argument would be that'd be better than chasing down the fraud after it occurs.
It's always better to prevent.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Menser?
Thank you, Chair. And if you don't mind, I have 2 questions.
Sure.
A good part of the fraud seems to come from retailers who take those cards and cash them out. What kind of penalties, sanctions, fines, punitive action do you take against these retailers that cash these cards out?
Good question. The retailers are handled by USDA OIG, and they're the investigative body that handles retailers. We are not in the full-scale retailer business, so we don't have the penalties and sanctions that they impose on their retailers when they're found. But they generally will lose their ability to sell and utilize bridge cards in their facility. They will shut them down. And they also look to prosecute the stores as well. It's a pretty high threshold, though.
Okay. And one of the other things I was a little concerned with here, in our legislative analysis, it talks about federal regulations and that retailers are not allowed to prohibit individuals who have an EBT card and a valid PIN from using the card if they are not pictured on the card. And it says, therefore, individuals with a bridge card and a valid PIN will be able to use the card regardless of whether or not the photo on the card matches. So is there any effort or, maybe something, Chair, that you spoke with Secretary Kennedy about changing the federal regulations? Because if federal regulations say you have to take that card whether the picture matches or not, that seems to me very problematic.
Absolutely. That specifically was some of the exact stuff that we were talking about. So thank you.
Yeah. Do you have any comment on that?
Comment on the federal regulations.
Correct.
You're correct in the federal regulation. I've got a few of the federal regulations in front of me, and there is the retailer cannot stop them, and anybody can hand somebody else their bridge card to use to purchase for them. Their name doesn't have to be on the card, and their face doesn't have to be on the card. So there's really we get police officers that call us all the time, that call our agency and say, hey, somebody was stopped with somebody else's bridge card. And if it's one bridge card and they say they were shopping for the family, it's totally okay. But if it's 25 bridge cards and they appear to be involved in something nefarious, then that's something we definitely look into. So it depends. You do have people who are shopping for a foster home or something where they might have multiple cards, and that might be totally legit, but it's something that we look at. But that has to do really with matching names, not necessarily with photos.
Thank you.
Well, unless anyone has any other questions, which it doesn't look like we do, I thank you for your time today, to you and your team, and we'll continue, I can promise you, we'll continue working to bring some clarity. And just as it related to the pictures, we know that regardless of that process, having people to potentially come in and have to get their picture and that user on that card, I don't know how many organized crime members and people that are thieves will want to come in and get their picture on someone else's card. Thank you for being here today. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to welcome the team from Conduent, and please come when you're ready.
Hello, my name is Jamie Topolsky. I'm the Director of Government Payment Products for Conduent.
Great.
I am fortunate.
Just real quick before you get started, thank you for being here today. And thank you for being here and being able to present on an idea of converting bridge cards to chip cards. In a spirit of transparency, I would like to state that it's my understanding that you've already have a bid in with the OIG to possibly complete this conversion, and this is something that you've already been potentially working with the state of Michigan.
We work with several states on this initiative. I do not believe we currently are working with the state of Michigan on this initiative. The state may be working with a different vendor at this time. We're here really in informational, in the capacity of information sharing.
Great, thank you. Go ahead when you're ready.
Terrific. And I'm fortunate also to have two colleagues join remotely via Zoom. If they want to introduce, we have Chris Carter. Chris, do you want to introduce yourself if you're able to?
Yeah, glad to. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, committee. My name is Chris Carter. I'm the head of fraud for the public sector. Work closely with Jamie and specifically on EBT cards. So looking forward to the conversation and seeing how we can work together on this.
Thank you. And Alex, you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. Great to meet you, committee. So yes, my name is Alex Riley. I'm a fraud expert with about a decade of different fraud experiences. So really pleasure to have you guys. I focus on EBT and some of our also open loop programs. So those are DX and the Way to Go programs. So pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Great. And I may turn to them to answer some questions and to fill in some gaps as well, but it's great to have them joining us as well. So we're going to cover a couple of topics. I just want to go at a high level, understand the current landscape of fraud, some of the reasons why we're in these difficult situations right now, some of the current industry standard fraud tools that are available that can help address. They may not be leveraged fully, but they are available now, and then some of the cutting edge future technologies that can help with this problem as well. So those three types of topics we'll be discussing. So let's talk a bit about the current fraud landscape and some of the challenges that we see. It's helpful to consider the differences between the cards that we have in our wallet, our credit cards and debit cards, and the bridge card, because that really points to some of the challenges that we are up against. So with your credit cards and debit cards, right? They're branded Visa or MasterCard, Discover, or American Express, And those organizations set all sorts of rules and technology controls and provide consumer rights for how they can use that card and protections for the consumers. And there aren't comparable controls and governing agencies similar to those private companies to protect the bridge card infrastructure and the recipients of those benefits. So, for example, if someone manages to steal your credit card or debit card and use it, you as an individual are protected against that type of fraud. The money will be restored to your account in most cases, unless you are negligent in notifying your bank or credit union that your card's been stolen. There is no comparable protection for benefit recipients and no oversight to protect against that. There's no ability to easily charge back or dispute transactions on a bridge card in most cases. It's much more complex to do so than to do so with a credit or debit card. And there are some regulatory gaps, as was discussed. Like sometimes the retailer is unable to decline a card that they might feel isn't properly being used, or the processor might not be able to decline the transaction because the rules say that the transaction must go through, the card must be accepted. So there's a bit of inflexibility in enforcing certain types of controls that might help reduce fraud. In terms of the technology, as the OIG presentation showed so really clearly, the cards are leveraging very old magnetic stripe technology. They're 100% correct. Anyone in this room could purchase a device to read the magnetic stripe off of any card and to write it onto any other card very, very easily with any laptop computer. You plug it in, you install a little bit of software, and it works by itself seamlessly. Very, very easy. And the criminals know this. They're able to get the data off of cards using these skimmer devices. But what's interesting is these skimmer devices that are installed on the point-of-sale terminals, they're still stealing the data in many cases of our chip cards. The difference is that you can't use stolen chip data to make a fake card, because as the OIG presentation rightly pointed out, there's a unique code for every single transaction. So the criminals can still get their hands on the data. They just can't use it to make a fake card. They can't make a fake magstripe card, and they can't make a fake chip card. So even though they still have the ability to get their hands on the information, it's useless to them. They can't shop online with it either in most cases. So it's really an extremely, extremely effective technology. And even though the underlying technology is quite old, it in fact has been used since the late 1990s in Europe and Asia, the keys and the cryptography that go into these chip cards continue to get stronger and stronger so that the criminals can't, crack the codes or crack the keys. So it's really a very, very effective way to counteract counterfeit card fraud and skimming problems. The OIG also talked about some of the issues with point-of-sale terminals, that criminals are getting their hands on terminals using incorrect or loading them with FNS numbers that they are not entitled to load. The processors of those transactions don't know that these are illegitimate uses of the FNS number, and lots of transactions are getting used to get fraudulent money, to remove money from the cards fraudulently. So they get their hands on the fraudulent cards, they have a fraudulent terminal, and they just work their way through them very, very quickly. So you see that as well in the terminal, the attacks against terminals. And then the criminals are also using the telephone systems to commit fraud. So they're calling into the IVR for the bridge cards, the numbers on the back of the cards, and attempting to figure out how much money is on the card, what's the PIN for the card. They will attack day after day. And if we determine that a card is a phone number that they're calling from is fraudulent, we'll block that number, but they have the technology to move to another number very, very quickly. So they're attacking really multiple channels. They're attacking the card by skimming and cloning it. They're attacking the point-of-sale terminals and the merchants by illegitimately using FNS numbers on fraudulent terminals. And they're attacking the back-end telephone systems and data systems to try and get data that's useful to help them commit the fraud. And these are the sorts of things we need to think about when we try to come up with solutions. So what are some of the standard tools that are available today? Some of these are going to seem almost laughable in terms of how simple they are, but believe it or not, these still need to be implemented in some cases. Just enforcement of using a secure PIN, right? Don't let someone use 1, 2, 3, 4 or 1111. We keep reading stories, that people who use passwords for their secure systems use the word password or something, or their name, right? It's the same sort of thing with a PIN. If you use an easily guessable PIN, it makes it that much easier for the criminal who steals your card or steals your data to guess the PIN very, very quickly without having to try 10,000 possible combinations.
So you're saying if my code's 111, I should probably change that today?
Yes, that'd be a good idea. And it's amazing how common those standard, 4321, 1234. And so we have controls in our systems to prevent if someone has more than 2 consecutive numbers that are the same, or numbers that go in order, upwards or downwards for more than 3 digits, we'll reject that PIN and ask them to select a more secure PIN. It seems basic, but it does help. Notifications, right? Getting a text message or an email whenever you have a transaction gives you the opportunity to say, hey, I wasn't at that store, I didn't make that purchase. And then in combination with the third item listed, then being able to lock your card. The card lock is something that could be more highly leveraged by bridge card recipients and other card recipients. The challenge, of course, is it requires proactive measures by the individual. You have to go in and lock your card and unlock it when you want to use it. But ultimately, when your card is locked, it does prevent a criminal from emptying the account. So it is a nice feature to have. Doing a PIN reset, whenever someone receives a new card in the mail or in person, having them reset their PIN, having them authenticate. So a criminal could intercept a piece of mail and get that card, and if they just have to enter the information that's on the card, they have everything right there in front of them. It's very, very easy. But if you also ask, what's your date of birth? What's your case number for your EBT benefits? Things that the criminal wouldn't know. What's your social security number? The criminal who has stolen a piece of mail doesn't know that additional piece of information, so they can't complete the card authentication process, can't use the card. It's another nice feature that can help reduce the amount of fraud. We talked about how criminals are attacking the phone systems. Having more robust systems detecting fraud on our phone systems can help as well. So for example, being able to score the likelihood that a call is fraudulent because we've seen that number used with multiple card accounts or card numbers, that's a way to block calls that are coming in from criminals who are trying to get data about a stack of cards that they've stolen. And then, of course, transitioning to EMV chip cards. I'm going to talk a bit more about the EMV cards. So what the EMV cards do...
Excuse me, we have a couple of questions specifically on where we're at in the PowerPoint. Representative Cara?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your testimony. I guess my question would be, if we do switch to the chip cards, would we have a magnetic strip and a chip card on the same card, or would it exclusively just have the chip card?
So you would need to have the magnetic strip on the card for the foreseeable future, because it would take several years for all of the retailers to switch over. And also, there are ATMs where you insert your card into it. There's a little door that opens, and the presence of the magnetic stripe actually is what opens that little door and lets the card get sucked in. So even if you don't need it for retailers, you still need that magnetic stripe in most cases in certain types of ATMs.
And in the case where you have to use that magnetic strip to open the door, basically, would that be enough to where it could be skimmed, or would that not have enough of the strip to be skimmed in that circumstance?
Well, there's two approaches. You could say the magnetic strip is there, but there's no meaningful data on it. The way we handle that traditionally in the chip world is the data that's on the magnetic strip is different than the data that's on the chip. So again, if someone steals the data off the magnetic strip, you can't use it to make the fake chip. And in fact, what you can do is say, okay, if we know that the retailer is supporting that chip, and we know that the person has a chip card in hand, decline the magnetic stripe transaction. Don't allow it to go through. Force the individual to use the chip. If you take your debit or credit card and try and make a purchase at CVS, Walmart, any store, by swiping it, the terminal is going to say, please insert the chip. It's going to force you to use the chip. only if you really try multiple times might it let go through, and then the bank may decline the transaction anyway. So there are back-end systems where you can say, yeah, the magnetic stripe's still there. You can still use it at the retailer that doesn't yet support the new chip, but everywhere else that does, if someone swipes the card, decline the transaction, force them to use the chip that you spent good money to put into the card.
Okay, thank you.
You can continue, thank you.
So, as was mentioned by the OIG, the presence of the chip really does cut down significantly on counterfeit card fraud. But the second thing we're going to do in conjunction with putting the chip in the card is add a 3-digit security code to the back of the card. So again, we all shop online, and we're used to being asked, what's the security, when you check out, please enter the security code from the back of your card. There isn't a single bridge card that exists today that has that 3-digit security code on the back of it. Because until the pandemic, there was no online shopping for SNAP benefits. So there was no need to put that security code on. But now there is online shopping, and so to help prevent all the fraud from migrating to the online channels, you need to have a security code on the back of the card. It really is not directly related to EMV, but you kind of, once you're reissuing the plastics, you put the chip in the front, you put the security code in the back, and you ask the online retailers to demand that security code as part of the shopping checkout process. And that way, when a criminal skims the magnetic stripe, they don't have that 3-digit code from the back of the card. It doesn't exist anywhere on the card except printed on the back. So unless the criminal has that physical card in their hand, they can't shop online with that stolen data. So the chip on the front of the card prevents counterfeit. The 3-digit code on the back of the card prevents online fraud. So, okay, then we do mention digital wallet. It's a much more complex technology to implement, getting the cards into Apple Pay and Google Pay. It's tough to do. It also introduces a different type of risk that we need to be aware of. It's called provisioning risk. When you mail a card to someone's physical address, you know where the card is going. Hopefully that person still lives at that address. But when you receive a request to what's called provision a card into someone's mobile phone, to get the card into their Apple Pay or Google Pay, it's very, very challenging to know whose phone is this that I'm going to send this card into. Is it the legitimate recipient of that bridge card benefit? Or is it the criminal who is claiming to be that recipient? It takes a lot of effort and a lot of thought has to go into it. It's not insurmountable, but it's something just to be aware of the challenges.
And Jamie Carter here, if I could jump in around the digital provisioning, there's also fraud strategies in a traditional fraud environment that are deployed in the time while that card is in the mail, which you lose during the digital provisioning. So that just goes to speak to the strength of that provisioning process. Needs to be very robust, because now you're talking about giving a card to somebody in seconds versus 3 to 4 days, where typically you can detect account takeover and work to mitigate the bad guys before that card reaches them in their USPS mailbox. So a lot goes into that digital provisioning. The timing is great, it's convenient, it's helpful for everybody, but if not done properly, the fraudsters will exploit that and drain the cards within minutes versus a couple of days that it takes for a physical card to be mailed.
That's a great point. Yeah, it sometimes faster isn't better when it comes to potential for fraud. So a question was asked earlier about can we estimate how much fraud could be reduced? And it's very tough. Every situation, every card portfolio is different, but we do have some good data that Visa published back in, I think, 2019 that showed how their migration to chip card from magstripe was being effective in the US market. So what this slide's a little busy, but it shows basically for retailers that had implemented support for chip, once there was, let's say, like an adequate number of cards out in the field that had been replaced, counterfeit card fraud loss dropped by 87%. And this is before full penetration. So this is when 80% of retailers had made the conversion and 72% of the plastics had been converted. So not even 100, not all your bridge cards are done. 72% are done. 80 out of 100 retailers have flipped it, and the fraud dollars, counterfeit card fraud dollars fell by 87%. And I don't have updated data. They never published this again. I suspect it's only continued in that trajectory.
So when did the private sector with credit cards, when did they start, what year did they start putting in chips in the card?
Yeah, the big rollout really started in 2015. So what happened was, I think it was late 2011, there was a very public breach of Target's credit card system, followed by several other very prominent breaches. We all started, you don't remember, we all started getting replacement cards in the mail, on a monthly basis, it seemed like. There was breach after breach. And so this is going from 2015 to, basically, over the course of 3.5 years, this is the drop. It was 87%.
So that's fascinating to me. You look at the 87%, you look at nearly 10 years that we as the state of Michigan could have implemented something like that at the tune of the OIG's testimony of around $300 million, which we know it's way more than that, but let's just say that's the number. We're talking about $4 billion of people's money that has been taxed and stolen or wasted. So I'm very excited to see that slide on that 87%, and only can imagine the billions that it will save over the next few years in the state of Michigan should this work. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would encourage the link, the source is there, included the link. There is a whole PDF that Visa did publish that might be helpful as well, containing additional data.
And you had mentioned also online shopping, like Instacart and things like that. This would obviously stop a huge amount of that, and the percentage of people using Instacart and those online shoppings is obviously increasing, correct?
Yes, what happens is, the criminals, to the extent they can be, will be lazy, and if it's easier just to empty all the cards by shopping online than having to physically go into store where they're maybe on a security camera, right? Why not? If I can steal from the comfort of my own home and couch with my laptop, I'll do so. Again, the addition of the 3-digit security code to the back of the card. So right now, when you shop online with a bridge card, you do need to enter in your PIN. So there is some security there, but again, the criminals are, that skimming device that we saw in the OIG presentation, it was a complete overlay. So it gathers all the data from the magnetic stripe, and it captures the PIN, because the PIN pad is an overlay as well. That's how they know your card information and your PIN number. And then they can shop online or at any other store they need to shop at. They sometimes use cameras, and they sometimes use the overlays. And what's amazing is that it used to be a few years ago, the criminals had to go back and retrieve that to get the data off of it. No, they just installed little Bluetooth transmitters into those things now, and they just go within 20 feet of it. So if someone comes back in the store, it transmits all the data to their phone, and then they have everything. They don't have to touch that terminal ever again. They just go in periodically. It's unbelievable. But the addition of the 3-digit security. So now what you're talking about for online shopping is a 4-digit PIN and a 3-digit security code. So there's 10,000 possible PINs, 1,000 possible 3-digit security codes. So the exponential combination. Right now, the criminals are patient. They will cycle through those PINs. They'll try all the common ones, and then they'll try some others. They will eventually get the right PIN. But once you add to that the 3-digit security code, it becomes exponentially. It would take them years to get the right combination. It really is an effective
Thank you. Representative Menser?
Thank you, Chair. I have kind of a strange question. When you consider, most people would do their, EBT grocery shopping at, like Kroger and Walmart and Myers. And it says here that 80% of retailers accept the chip cards. Where are people who have EBT cards? What is this other 20%? Is this the gas station fast food store? I mean, what kind of stores are these? And I guess I'm confused why there wouldn't be some kind of a limit that EBT cards could be used only in certain types of stores.
Yep. So this was this was the statistic back in early 2019. So the percentage, right, you're absolutely right. Now, almost every retailer, it's hard to find a retailer where you can't use your chip card. Gas stations were one of the last to implement because the poor station owners, they had to change every pay at the pump terminal, right? Think about all the pumps, and they had to swap out. It was a very lengthy and expensive process for them to do that. And the thing that's important right now is that all the retailers that can accept chip cards, they're going to have to make a small upgrade to the software to support the EBT chip card, because every chip card, like a Visa chip card versus a MasterCard, Discover, and now EBT, has a slightly different code in it, so that they can when you either tap or insert your chip, it knows, this is a Visa debit card, this is a Discover credit card, this is a Snap EBT bridge card, and it knows what the rules are for that card. So with a bridge card, the terminal says, it's a bridge card, I have to ask for the PIN every single transaction. There's no way to make a Snap purchase without entering my PIN. It enforces that. But with your credit card, most of the time it doesn't ask you for your PIN. It knows that by the coding that's in the chip. So there is work to be done by the retailers, which is an important thing that we all need to keep in mind and push for. There needs to be at some point a deadline for every EBT accepting retailer to support this new chip standard. The worst thing would be for the state to go through all the cost of issuing these cards, and then the retailers not being able to leverage the technology of the chip because then they haven't made that minor upgrade. So the two have to go hand in hand, the card issuance and the retailer support for the chip. Both pieces must be.
Thank you. And just so you know, we have about 5 to 10 minutes left. So I know you have 2 slides left. So if we could get through those and the most important parts of those, thank you.
Yep, sure. Sorry, I'm being long-winded. So.
Oh, no, you're doing great. Thank you. Yeah.
So some additional technologies to keep in mind. You certainly could set rules to block transactions. FNS is now doing a pilot to allow blocking of transactions in certain states that are defined, that the state defines as, let's say, high-risk geographies. So if in your analysis you find, there's a lot of our cards that are being used in a counterfeit manner, let's say in California or Florida, you could set a rule to block all transactions for bridge cards in those states, and then let individuals who are traveling there turn off that block. So if I happen to be going to California to visit a family member and want to be able to shop there with my benefits.
So just to be clear, so if you're on assistance, you need help, but you're going on vacation, we give people the ability to use these cards in other states?
Well, currently you can use the card anywhere in the country. So the default is to say there's interoperability. Any card can be used in any state. And sometimes that's, if I live right on the border with Indiana, or, I could be shopping there, vice versa. So there's good reasons to have what's called interoperability, which is mandated by FNS rules. But if you notice there's a large amount of fraud occurring with your bridge cards in another particular state, this would allow you to say, okay, let's lock that state, and for the 100 people we have on our bridge cards that need to travel there, we can turn it back on. They can go in the mobile app, they can go on the website, they can go on the IVR, turn back on shopping in that state with their card, and everyone else benefits is protected. So that's something that's not available today that's being pursued. And then likewise, with terminals that are identified as fraudulent, we could do a better job of proactively looking for those fraudulent terminals where there's a mismatch between the FNS number and other data that we know about that terminal, and proactively cut off those terminals as soon as they're detected, not having to wait for there to be thousands of fraudulent transactions and OIG or any other law enforcement agency to spot that and shut it off, but for us as a processor to proactively shut that off.
It fascinates me to be able to get benefits in the state of Michigan. You have to be a resident in the state of Michigan, but then you can use those benefits in a different state.
Yes.
So some of those monies are not even staying within the state. So I just wanted to make that as a statement. Also, Representative Bruck. Oh, you will? Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish.
Yeah. Last thing I'll mention is just, again, there's newer technologies. There's generative AI that we can start using to detect, address, let's just say, fraudulent activity that's being done by mailing multiple cards to a criminal's address. The criminal knows that, you may be looking for an exact duplicate address, so what they will do is they will spell the word street completely for one card and an ST for another card. They make it very difficult to match addresses, so it's hard to know that multiple criminal cards are being sent to the same address. So we can use logic to now start better detecting this type of fraud, where we find that there are some legitimate reasons why multiple bridge cards could go to the same address. It could be a group home, it could be an agency, it could be a shelter for homeless people. There are legitimate reasons why multiple bridge cards go to the same address, but there also are circumstances where criminals have used fraudulent means, identity theft, to claim benefits for people that they are not, and then get them all sent to the same address. So there's better tools out there that we're developing to try and help spot that type of fraud. So that's what I got. There is an appendix that talks a bit more about all of the challenges of EMV and what needs to happen in order to support the chip card standards. It does take a lot of work. It's not simply just adding a chip to the card.
Thank you so much. Representative Bruck.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for being here. You are obviously the expert. I learn something every day, and especially about the 4-digit PIN, the 3-digit PIN, those variables, and how many. That's pretty fascinating stuff. Obviously, I do a lot of traveling, have Discover, and I get dinged all the time when I travel out of country or even in other states where, they lock my card, or I get that text. I have it set up every transaction I get a text for, so I know when my wife buys, I know when people in my business buy. I keep tracked in that way. But you had mentioned on slide 4, it had the 6 ideas. You talked about the fraud tools. It started out with the soft pin restrictions and then ended with the transition to EMV cards. You had mentioned that the soft pin restrictions are on bridge cards currently in Michigan. I guess my question is, these 6 items that you mentioned or have there on that slide, are there other states that you are working with that are instituting that, and what is the benefit, or what are the positives that you have seen from that? And just correct me if I'm wrong, is in Michigan, they are only doing that first item listed there currently on the bridge cards?
Unfortunately, I don't know which are being leveraged by Michigan, because we're not the vendor that the state currently works with for your bridge cards. So there's a couple of other vendors in this industry. So I don't know which have been implemented for your current program.
Are there other states utilizing all 6 of these?
Yes, although the transition to EMV cards is just underway right now in a few of our states. So the state of Oklahoma is working to be our first state to implement chip cards, but several other states have lined up to do that. But every other item on here has been implemented by some of our states, and some of them pick or choose. Some, for example, may not want the alerts because there's a cost associated with each alert. Right? It's small, but it does add up when you're talking about that volume of transactions. Others want all of them. And we do find it definitely is an escalating war with the criminals. We implemented this, that second to last one, the adaptive fraud on the IVR. It really started blocking some of the criminals from calling. Then they upgrade their technology so that every call that they do, it changes the number it's from. Somehow they're able to spoof the phone number. That's why we get so many spam calls on
every day. Yes, sir.
Day. And they change the number. You block one, they change to the next. And that's what they're doing here as well.
So on this list of 6 items, what is the most important item that you would recommend as preventing the most fraud, the quickest amount of time, that would be helpful to us as a state?
So the quickest is an effective use of the card lock, because that's not dependent on any third party. Although it is dependent on the benefit recipient to lock their card. The most effective long-term would be the transition to EMV cards, because that really does eliminate the opportunity to counterfeit the cards. So from this list, I would say those two would be the strongest ones, the quickest lock, and encourage people to lock. Now, what we did on our, I don't know, one thing that we have at Conduent on our mobile app and on our website, which I'm really proud of, is, look, we all have, not we all, many of us have alarm systems on our home, but we leave our home and we forget to set the alarm sometimes. I've happened to friends of mine, and the same is true with card locking. You can unlock your card because you're going shopping, but then you forget to lock it when you're done shopping. So now what we added was whenever someone unlocks their card, we put a little prompt up that says, would you like to schedule your card to automatically relock in 30 minutes, 60 minutes, or 90 minutes? And the person selects, I'm going to be shopping for the next hour, so I'll say 60 minutes, lock my card. They don't have to remember to come back and lock their card. And we found that increased the usage of the card, increased the percentage of time that cards are locked, because who's going to remember after, they're loading the groceries in their car, they're busy with their kids, no one's going, oh, I got to go back on my mobile app and lock my card again. You unlock it once, because even if you go to pay and you're like, oh, my card's locked, you unlock it right there in the checkout lane, you say lock it again in 30 minutes, you're done. So it doesn't mean it's something you have to remember to do, it's done for you. So that can be a very effective tool, and it's a quick one, but the transition to chip cards. Look, we used to get, when was the last time you got a replacement card out of the blue? That wasn't because your card was expiring. It worked, it really, really worked.
Well, I appreciate your testimony, appreciate all your information, and it seems like a private industry moves much faster than the government. I can attest to that. So thank you for your influence and hopefully making the government run better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I still have a question for you. Thanks. You're not dismissed, sir. What would the cost potentially be to Michigan, to its taxpayers, to implement this system, and also how long would it take?
That is a question I wish I had an answer for you here. I don't know. It is not an inexpensive change. The cards are expensive to add the chip. They could be, several dollars per card, and it's a big upgrade in terms of the system processing. The amount of data that's on that chip that comes with the transaction greatly increases, so you have to process much more data. So the whole back-end system has to now handle additional keys, data. That's something we can get to you. I just don't know off the top of my head. It is a multi-million-dollar project.
Yes, multi-million-dollar project in hopes to save billions.
Yes.
I'm not a mathematician, but that seems like a pretty good return on investment, so we look forward to that. Before you go, Representative Carl?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Similar question is, do you know what the cost would be to retailers for the upgrade they'd have to do to recognize the code for the chips in the EBT cards?
Yeah, I do not believe it should be very high. There should be no need to replace the physical point of sale terminal for the retailer unless they have a set aside, a second terminal that's used solely for processing of bridge cards. There may be some retailers that used to be common. I don't think it's very common anymore. But any retailer that has a single terminal today that processes their Visa, MasterCard, and bridge card transactions, it will be a software update. It's a matter of their supplier or vendor being ready to push that update to that point of sale terminal. And it's going to be the state pushing from sort of up high, the retailers asking from down below, and hopefully everyone in the middle will get their act together and get those updates written and pushed out.
Okay, thank you. And then one last quick question, if I may, Mr. Chair. My last question would be, from the magnetic strip versus the chip reading, would there be a higher or lower or equal level of data compiled on an individual in terms of their purchasing habits, where they go shopping, where they buy their food, where they're using their card?
No additional data. There's no, in the industry we call it SKU level, stock keeping unit, SKU level data that comes with any of these transactions that I'm aware of. It's strictly the exact same data about this is the amount, this is the retailer, the date and time. We just have much greater certainty that the card is genuine and the transaction's not been doctored in any way. That's really what we know.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Jamie, I can confirm that on the back end, when we're looking at transactional or data for fraud, we see transactions in aggregate. We don't see individual purchase, itemized purchase. We can see person A went to store B and spent X amount of dollars is what we could see. So the amount of data available in EMV versus MaxStripe is exactly the same from a back end perspective. It's all around the keys and the encoding of the number of the card number itself.
Thank you.
Well, sir, thank you. I know that this committee and myself and the taxed citizens, sometimes we lose the significance of that when we say taxpayers, the people who are taxed on the money they earn. And I are definitely concerned about this fraud that we've seen in these assistance programs administered by MDHHS and which end up on bridge cards. So I appreciate you being here and your willingness to help us out in this fight and to find this fraud. So thank you for being here today.
My pleasure. Thank you. Happy to help any way we can.
And at this time, I'd like to bring up Representative Ron Robinson for testimony. Representative, thank you for being here today. I know you have other committees and other things, but when you had shared with me your story, I thought that it would be very important for people to hear that, because I too have heard stories of people standing in line as we've been talking about these things, where they saw a person with 3 different bridge cards shopping and getting food. Those that are in the law enforcement business saying when they raid a house that they find multiple cards, not cards that were cloned, cards given or sold. And there's a price that comes with that, and sometimes can be the ultimate price. So thank you for being here, and look forward to hearing from you today.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the committee for hearing my testimony today. I'll keep this short. I wasn't privy to the previous testimony, but when I heard that you guys are addressing and trying to strengthen the structure of this the system, I had to come and tell my story, because we hear stories about fraud all the time, how these people prey on people who are trying to help with these bridge cards. But in November of 2021, a friend of mine was murdered over his bridge card. He lived with a gentleman, and there was some tumultuous relationship going on. But essentially, if these structures that you're talking about were in place, I think my friend would be alive today. He was killed over his bridge card. And so, I mean, there's not a lot of. Luckily, the person was sentenced, and he's going to be in jail for a long time. But if these structures were in place, I think my friend would be alive today. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Representative, thank you for that. And, you know, in my closing, I was going to state that this, right now, our state is truly bleeding so much money in these programs. And we have to detect this not only for monetary purposes, but also put in systems that will help protect people like your friend who rated these benefits. But because someone knew that they could just use that card regardless, it literally cost him his life.
That's true.
And those are the people that we're concerned about. And I know that you know this, but for those that are listening on this committee, I know that leadership from the State House to the White House, I know that we are committed to stopping waste, fraud, and abuse and protecting those, much like your friend, that are in desperate need of help. So thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to each of you on the committee today. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.